Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Campaign Middle East on the Record podcast, where we speak to leaders in the industry across brand communications and marketing about the key trends shaping this industry in the Middle East. I'm Anup Uman, the editor of Campaign Middle East, and joining me on the show today is Roy Aftimos, the Chief Executive Officer, CEO of C2 Comms. Roy, thank you for joining us here today.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
It is a pleasure to have you here. Couple of discussions that we've had right before the podcast. I'm going to go straight into it. We're living in an exciting time, but also a little scary time in terms of the developments happening within the industry. We've reached a level of sophistication, so to speak, in terms of how we view data, in terms of our data-driven decisions. And coming to that conversation, it's not just the cultural intelligence, it's not just the cultural insights that we're deriving from a lot of data driven tools that we have, but it's also in terms of understanding agentic AI agents at this point that are taking decisions on behalf of consumers. It's an interesting time. There are a lot of exciting developments that we can talk about, but I want to throw this question to you without putting any words in your mouth. What, according to you, are the most exciting developments that you're seeing right now within the industry? And before we dive straight into it, what do we need to take cognizance of?
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for having me. It is interesting. It's super interesting, and sometimes you stop and you wonder how lucky and fortunate we are to be living in this era, to be able to experiment with all of these. I think we come from a background where you study in books of things to come for the coming 10, 20 years, but the reality is so far from it. The key development that everybody is talking about, because it is a reality and we're using it and everybody's using it to a certain extent or trying to get there, is of course agentic modeling, agentic AI. And education is super important on this front, because if you really dig between internal stakeholders without outside stakeholders, you will find that there are different perceptions in terms of what is it really about, how is it going to happen, am I ready, would I like to be ready, and things like that. So agentic AI is super important, as you've rightly said it, but the impact of that is even more important and interesting for us. Specifically, that the industry is developing. The industry has been rapidly developing for the last, I would say, 6-7 years, specifically post-COVID, in tandem with tech development and what have you. And the ability to give the agencies, to give the brands, to give the businesses, to give everybody the freedom to use platforms, to be the practitioners and not just operators of platforms, is super interesting, because then you can tailor really what is needed according to the business objectives, communication objectives, or whatever objectives you've set in the task that you want to go after. And there is a third component, which is also interesting for us in terms of what we do, which is the ability to speak to individuals in specific context, in a specific time, specific frame, which is the art of personalization. Now, if we look at personalization, as we've been mentioning, the concept is not new. It's a super old. What we are doing is we're leveraging tech to be able to do, maybe to add one additional layer to what personalization is about, the ability to listen before we talk. Because we're an industry that we enjoy our own voice, right? We like to push. What AI, what tech, the developments that are happening that will impact what we are doing is that it would allow us to listen first, to be able to talk properly, to be able to engage or trigger or whatever we want to push, or whatever the desired outcome is.
I really like that concept of listening first, but I feel like there is a piece, like you mentioned, there are external stakeholders and then there are internal stakeholders. There are people that we're listening to, whether it's from client side, that we need to listen to more carefully in terms of what their long-term brand vision is. But there's also the consumer side. We get to understand what's truly driving them, what problems do we really need to solve for them. And that's the external listening. But there's also, I feel, a little bit of internal that we need to go through. And what I mean by this is we as a generation grew up as digital natives. our phones, our laptops, our iPads, all of this was natural to us. It became ingrained and it became intrinsic to the lives that we lead. But the generation that's coming up now are AI natives and native to everything that they think, the way they act, the questions they ask, the answers they expect in some form or manner, whether it's at home or whether it's at work, is in correlation, in collaboration with AI. What I find fascinating is internally within our organizations, it's not just AI natives as employees, as humans that we're dealing with. We're also dealing with agentic AI becoming part of our workflows, becoming taking on automated tasks, reducing redundancies, increasing efficiencies, whether operational or otherwise. In this new world that we're creating, where you've got AI natives as humans and agentic AI working side by side, hand in hand, to hit our targets, whether that's on the P&L or otherwise, what skills, what strategies, what specific strengths would we be looking for within the workforce that are different from the way we initially hired or looked for people on our teams?
Absolutely, that's super interesting, and sometimes I find it super scary that some institutions just started talking about it, because if you just started talking about it on an internal level, then it's a bit, I would be a bit worried.
Dicey,
But
yeah.
however, let's look at the positive aspect, and I think the commercial topic is AI here to replace us? Oh, AI will replace you. Oh, I need to tell my kids to work in something that AI will replace them. And I respect that there is not enough time that has been spent to create enough awareness about what is it. But if we really put our emotions aside and think of today, when you talk about agentic AI, at least in the foreseeable future, because with tech, it's all about the yet. We could be talking in a year, and we could be talking about something else altogether.
Yeah.
So let's focus about
The here
today.
and now, yeah.
Today, what AI is doing is actually what humans complain about. Labor intensive, the ability to have to multitask. I think there was a recent study by Microsoft that said that individuals who are working during the day, they get close to 270 interruptions per day. And around 50% of between managers and leaders and everybody across the task force, around 50% believe that they cannot focus anymore, right? Because so much is needed. There is a lot that needs to be done, and so on and so forth.
It's so true, because I feel like even at my desk now, I've got this little placard that says, have you tried searching for the answer on Google or AI before you come and ask me?
100%.
And I feel like what you're saying is, in a sense, that these tools take away the decision fatigue that unnecessarily gets handed
Unnecessarily,
up. Yeah.
absolutely unnecessarily. That is more labor intensive. That will allow you to scale, so you don't need to spend all the hours. You don't need to dissect your brain in 270 layers to be able to do that. Now, what it requires maturity. It requires people to sit around the table and understand where they are heading. Because you asked about skills, you asked about quite a few points.
Yeah.
So the most important thing for us is that in the era of digital transformation or adoption or whatever you want to call it, because there are so many fancy names in the industry, is that this is not about the tech. It's not about the tool. Transformation or adoption or any of these words, it's cultural actually.
Absolutely.
And you need to have it from the top down. It cannot be something that you leave for the Gen Z to play with or whatever it is, just like make them feel good.
It's like my dad used to say, I like the way you say, and you phrase that, but my dad used to say it starts from the inside out.
100%.
It's a culture that you build. It's that continuous
100%.
learning, it's adaptability, all of that, yeah.
100%. And even the word the transformation, I personally have an issue with, because I think we are in an era where you need to reimagine how you work. You cannot just try and plug in things as you see fit, because ultimately they will not work, and you will be creating more and more silos. So having a culture that is digitally native, having a culture that is open to change. And again, we speak about tools, we speak about people, we speak about skills, but people in culture, HR. You know, I'm sure you get people, and we all have JDs and KPIs. But how can you set them? How can I set a KPI for you or a JD that we're going to have to live with from now till another year, whereby we know that things will change? So this would require agility at an operational level. Your modus operandi, you know, it's not just a buzzword that you print and you put it in your values or whatever things that you believe in. If you don't bring it to life, because if you start from the top, you'll be able to eliminate all silos. And the way we had the speciality, and then the agency is the industry, sorry, is going back to integration. Integration is very important. Integration from the get-go is very important. I do not believe that, for example, media strategists will live on their own. Social strategists will live on their own. We already have strategists that have to think across AI orchestration. If we think of AI orchestration, it's a reflection of a strategic orchestration about what is it that you want to do and how you articulate it across what is needed. So these are from the get-go. These are not tools or processes or just the frameworks that you need to put. You need to start thinking from the early stages like this and ensure that you work with people like that, you recruit people like that, and more importantly, you also empower people who are willing to change. There are quite a lot of things that we need to also keep in mind. To just leave it to happen shouldn't be the case, and it is the responsibility and the duty of the leaders to ensure that you understand where you are going. At least you have a vision in terms of the information that you have today, in terms of where you are going, and set certain framework to balance what is needed from Agentic AI beyond labor, because it's only about the time, right? With time, I'm pretty sure it's going to do a bit more and a bit more and a bit more. How do I repurpose, reframe the various JDs that I have to ensure that everybody is putting in value, and how they are working with Agentic AI in order to deliver better experiences, better businesses, more meaningful relationship, and anything that we are out.
I like the way you phrase it. It based on the objectives you're trying to make, right?
100%.
It's the KPIs that you're trying to meet, it's the business goals, it's P&L, but it's also about relationships and what you're trying to achieve. And it's interesting because, I mean, I'm not going to take names, but it bounces off conversations where we've had where the KPI is not to use Agentic AI. The KPI is not to embed AI somehow. See, everybody is doing it. We need to be on board. Let's get AI in some form or manner into our organization. No, it's about understanding that we have a goal. We have a short-term goal. We have a mid-term goal. We have a long-term goal that we're going to hit. Now, these are different tools. Like people are a tool, HR and the resources that they give us are a tool. The computers we have at our desk are a tool. Similarly, AI is a tool. How does that plug in to help us reach those goals? And the KPI shouldn't be set simply to say, okay, we have certain technologies and we're going to use those technologies to get where we are at.
Look, at the end of the day, we're licensed under an advertising agency traditionally, right? That's but what we do, we communicate. Right. What we do is we work with brands. So definitely we're not a tech company, and it is not really our job to compete with whoever is developing the tech. Like we are not a channel of communication. What we do is we leverage tech. We leverage tech for the business purpose. So we're not there. We're not tech resellers. We don't sell tech. Anyway, we don't care. What we do, we work with partners. We work with the brands. We work internally to see what is it that would work for you. There are around 15,000 different tech solutions now. 15,000. How do you choose? So what you do, you want to feel safe, so you're not really judged. You go with the known brands, also without getting into names, but if you choose 1, 2, 3, 4 brands, you're safe. If it doesn't work, it's their problem, not your problem. The reality is nobody leverages tech. No, we, including ourselves. We don't leverage Excel. We don't leverage Word. We don't. It is super important to be focused on why we exist and why do we do all what we do. We don't do this to feel good about tech or agentic AI. We do this in order to achieve business goals, business objectives, and the conversation shouldn't start with the campaign and with the idea and with the tech and with the tool.
It's purpose.
It's purpose. It's the whole purpose of why we exist, why we're sitting together, what are your objectives, can we work together to achieve these objectives. Now, what we specialize in is comms and tech and Marcom tech and what have you. But we're not here to only sell that. We're here to achieve the objectives, because if we deploy all the tech and we don't achieve the objectives, then we're missing the point completely.
Very interesting, because it goes back to the fact that you're solving a problem. You're trying to lift your P&L, but there's also a brand outcome that you're trying to achieve. There's also a social impact outcome you achieve. There are different people around the table, internal and external stakeholders who have different objectives, and they're trying to feed into that. And to be honest, there are not many agencies, not many leaders who'll even have the guts to go out and say, I'm sorry, but I'm not the right fit to solve that problem. And these are the strengths we have, these are the tools we have, these are the abilities, agency capabilities that we have. But beyond that, here's a perspective on how we can solve for that problem together. And maybe you need agentic AI for that solution specifically. Maybe you don't. And I like the way you say sometimes we need to understand tech before we leverage it, because it's test, learn, experiment, 100%. So that you can give an informed opinion, not just an opinion.
100%. There is maybe something that we look into differently now. They might sound the same, but what we do, we don't solve problems. We find solutions. And I know it can sound the same. I know it's like, what's the difference? But we work towards providing a solution. And that's really what matters. And
I like the way you're saying a solution, not the solution.
No, a solution.
That's true.
A solution. Yeah. It's all about feedback mechanism, how you put, but this is how you leverage tech, right? Now you are a bit more scientific in terms of how you do, more accurate and things like that. However, from a comms perspective, 2 years ago, we were talking about NFTs. Now we're talking about agentic AI. And next year, we're going to talk about something else. The reality is that today, probably, but the reality is that if you would like me to use a pigeon to deliver, I will debate with you why. And maybe you're going to come and say, oh, I want to use the tech. And my answer to you is going to be, you don't need a tech. You need a pigeon, actually. Or you know what? You don't need anything. You need to pick up the phone, go sit with a person, look into their eyes, understand their body language, see what it is. So we shouldn't become too biased towards anything. We shouldn't lose focus on why we exist. We don't exist to feel good that we can converse about tech and AI and what have you. They're super important, but we can't be just completely one-sided and lose, as I said, focus towards why we exist and why we are together and why we're sitting together with various partners.
We've spoken about data-led decisions. We've spoken about agency capabilities. We've spoken to a certain extent about relationships within the industry. I'm going to get to a slightly controversial topic now, which is procurement. And the reason this is important is because we've heard from multiple different people that agencies are getting a little more commoditized. We're looking more, there are stakeholders within the industry that seem to be more focused on cost cutting, getting the L1 cost, L1 pitches through nepotism, favoritism, rather than the value that can be derived from it. Now, Campaign Middle East did an entire exclusive in-depth feature which went into all the little nitty-gritties of shifting goalposts, evaluation criteria not being clear, complete lack of feedback, sometimes people being ghosted about it. Now, everybody understands this within the region, but every time this conversation is brought up, it's also brought up in the aspect of this is a bubble waiting to burst, right? How and what can we collectively do? And this is a question that we've asked multiple leaders, and bringing you into that conversation as well. Your hot take on what we can collectively do to prevent it sliding any further, and how we can collectively, and bringing all stakeholders to the table, have that conversation about there is something that we need to fix, and here's how we can go about it.
Sure. So I'm gonna try and avoid the personal
Obviously.
rant.
Yeah, sure.
I will avoid that and get
Yeah.
into what it is because
No
I can
trauma
speak
here.
a lot
I
of
mean, this
trauma.
is a little bit of a
Yeah,
therapy
I
session,
can lie
but
down a
yeah.
bit more and start talking, but I'll get to it. Look, procurement and what have you, they're all tied to quite interesting terminologies, right? Like best offer and money and 1% and 2% and whatever it is. So you said, what is it that we can do individually and collectively? And if we want to address something, then let's take a step back and think about things that are not necessarily monetary, things that sometimes money cannot buy, like dignity and respect and things like that.
Relationships.
Relationships are very important, and today we need to decide collectively whether we want to be part of this or we don't want to be part of this. And what I mean by that is we need to ask ourselves sometimes, do I want to participate in a pitch where there are 15 different institutions or companies or agencies or whatever it is participating? Is it really fair? We need to decide whether we would like to speak and put in a proposal where you are not being clear with me by telling me that you need the word, but then later telling me you still need the word, but you're not going to pay for it. And why do we need to be a hypocrite and wear gloves and make things look good? Like, why do we need to go through all this? Does anybody really believe out in the world that I'm going to work for free or I'm going to lose money? Who does it? Who does it? But unfortunately, we go back to traditional KPIs and ticking the boxes and quite a lot of things. The concept of third-wheeling agencies into trying to look good in front of procurement is quite known. And we all know that at least 50% of pitches in procurement, whatever happens, is already predetermined. Then what happens is that you get squeezed. But what we're missing is value and value creation. Because if we don't, we talk about bespoke experiences. You asked me in the beginning, I told you I'm like super exciting because with Agentic AI or with AI, the ability to really personalize, the ability to listen and what have you. So when we want to create value, when we want to create meaningful relationship and we start cutting on every single corner, they go completely the opposite way, the opposite direction, completely. So we really need to decide what is it that we stand for, what is it that we are willing to be part of. Am I willing to be part of this? And again, let's go back to the objective. What's the objective? What's my purpose? Why do I exist? I exist to create value. If our relationship is going to start by becoming a commodity from the get-go, it's a problem.
So I like this because what you're talking about then is, as an agency, you're not putting the blame on somebody else. It's also about us holding ourselves accountable. What am I worth? What value do I bring to the table? I understand that we need a little back-to-back. I understand that we need a little bit of, a new client to come in this year to hit our goals, to hit our margins, but not at the cost of who we are and not at the cost of the value that we bring to the table. In a way, I think this is also a little bit about agency empowerment, because this is saying be open to saying no when the time has come to say no.
Look, it's about empowerment that will bring respect. And you can do that when you create value and the value is creating impact. So it is like a circle. It's not a vicious at all, actually. It's a very constructive circle that you need to get yourself into. It's super easy in anything that happens in the world to blame you, blame the others, blame whatever it is. So I'm not going to sit and blame procurement. I'm not going to blame procurement. I'm just saying that this is how it happens. It's unfair. Now it's my call. Do I want to be part of it or I don't want to be part of it? It's absolutely my call. Do I want to commoditize what is it that I'm doing and then ask for value or not? But the reality is that it goes back to us. It goes back, as I said, to why we exist. How do we create value? What is it that we want to do? Now, when you have a history or when you have credentials that show that you deliver and you can partner, you become the client. You think like the client. You're in it together. The KPIs of the CEO are exactly your KPIs. However, they get translated in terms of what you want to do. But when you take ownership, then the level of conversation moves from just commoditizing what is it that you are selling into what value you are adding and
And I
inputting
think
into
that
the
goes
business.
back to the word that you keep referring to, which is relationships. Because at the end of the
100%.
day, you're building just the same way you build relationships with your wife, with your brothers, sisters, with your friends. You build a relationship based on trust, based on transparency, where you're going the distance with them. It's not one campaign, it's not one project.
No.
It's okay, I want to understand your brand. It takes an agency what sometimes 6 to 8 months to understand brand. So we're not gonna do a 1 year retainer. We're in it for the long term. We want to understand you, build something with of value together. I'm going to move away from procurement to understanding value that each of these agencies are bringing in. One of the key things that has come back to the fore again and again is this buzzword of localization. So I'm going to take my chopping board and like cut through that localization buzzword a bit, right? What's interesting, and this is from a third person's external view, is seeing agencies within the GCC, irrespective of country, whether it's the
Yeah.
UAE, Saudi, Kuwait, Jordan, Qatar, Oman, homegrown agencies that have come up now and have developed a level of maturity, a level of sophistication that usually used to be associated with global Western agencies coming in, solving problems or finding a solution, in your words, for clients and for government entities. Yeah, I want to touch a little bit upon that in terms of what local and homegrown agencies have matured and reached that level of sophistication, what they bring to the market from that cultural viewpoint, from that local understanding, from having people from the region, from hyperlocal communities as part of their collective. Leaning into what we're talking about in terms of tech is we're even getting to a point where we have Arabic specific LLMs, you know, Arabic first agentic AI that understands not only questions that need to be answered, but from a comms perspective, the colloquial, cultural nuances
Absolutely.
of it.
Absolutely. Look, that's again, it ties back directly to why I said we're fortunate, because we're fortunate to live and have the tools to be able to implement. There's a lot of theory. The difference is not in the theory, the difference is in the implementation and how quick can you go to something. Because again, money cannot buy a very rare commodity, which is time. And there's a lot of things that are about the time from a competitive perspective, from whatever needs to happen. Now, if you build the right framework between humans and between agentic models that are coming, and you ensure a very smooth integration, then you will set yourself to be in a very good place to, as an independent, local, global, whatever name we're going to use, to be able to give yourself the ability to, again, to listen, to be able to talk. We go back to the listening, listening bit. Because there is a market for everything. There is nothing right or wrong. It depends on what is it that you want to go after.
Yeah.
It's all perspective. But when you preach relationship, when you preach values, when you preach relationship, then how do you live up to a relationship? We can have a relationship whereby I can send you a WhatsApp on New Year and tell you happy New Year. That's a relationship, and we can have a relationship where I predict that you're gonna be in a certain position, or there is something that might happen, and then I am there for you before you even know what it is. They're both relationships. So it depends on how deep we want to dig into that. Now, the ability to leverage AI and listening and the ability to talk and what have you will allow us to access more and speak more personally to micro communities, to individuals. If we think of tech, we are able to speak to you individually. And it is not about pushing, it's about pulling. And pulling is very important. So if we leverage all of these, then it's not our voice, what we want to say, and then we're shoving it down your ears.
Agenda setting, yeah.
At all. It's about how your digital body language is signaling that you are more likely to be receptive to this type of message in this format along this channel when you are more likely to take an
It's
action.
very interesting because this goes back to the feedback that a lot of consumers have given on a lot of campaigns saying, hey, I want to boycott this brand because, or this is tone deaf because. And that comes a lot sometimes, like you said rightly, because there are certain brands or clients that have had an agenda, a product, a service that you're trying to sell, and they're pushing it down and attempting to pivot consumer behavior to match that rather than listening and saying, okay, this is what the consumers need. Now we need to find a solution, and we as an agency or as a brand or as a client need to pivot ourselves
100%.
to match that instead.
Look, 100%. And today, the tech and AI and LLMs and all of these, they're not there yet. And what do I mean by this? There are a lot of cultural nuances. There's a lot of things that you can only get when you have a human that is involved in terms of what you're doing. So it's about the balance of how you leverage tech, managed through people who do understand, homegrown people who do understand really what is it about and how am I going to communicate and what does it mean. Unfortunately, a lot of the cases, the region is seen as it's predominantly Arabic, for example. But put between countries, even if you go between cities, between streets, things are communicated differently. You know, the level of it.
Even this concept of Arabic is not Arabic in the UAE, in Saudi,
It's not.
in different
100%.
parts of Saudi, because everybody
100%.
has their dialects, everybody has their movies they were brought up with, their TV series they were brought up with, their different cultural jokes that they crack with each other.
100%.
And this concept of, oh, you can go to the Middle East and speak in Arabic is it's fallacy, because I mean, if you take the example of going back to the UK, the English spoken in Scotland or Ireland or or Wales or England or even different parts of London is completely different. And if you don't
Absolutely.
communicate to them or understand them or speak the language that they want to speak, it's completely different.
And mainly the key focus for us that we focus on understand them. Understand them. What do they mean by this? What is it? And this is how you can take this and really leverage meaningful relationships with the brand, because ultimately this is what will create value and give a purpose in order, like procurement, not to really commoditize everything that we are doing. But I'm super excited about that, again, because instead of talking only about the theory of listening, now the tools help you to listen, analyze, come up with conclusion. How do you action all the? So when you read all these data points, when you put measurement framework, when you work towards value creation, they are very nice name drops that I'm just said them now, so I could look interesting. But the reality is that when we finish this and we go back to the office and we're going to work, how do we live to that? What does it mean? Now tell me, what does it mean? What is it that I'm measuring? If I'm measuring this data point, what kind of action? Now, in order to measure properly, you leverage tool. Today, there are a lot of things that could be decided based on tech, agentic AI or AI. But then there is a lot that has to rely also on a human.
In order to understand, you need insights. Before insights, you need analytics. Before analytics, you need to get your data right. Before you get your data right, understand where is that data coming from. Is it clean? Is it not clean? Is it first party, third party? Before we understand even that, we need to figure out ourselves. Are we looking at leads? Are we looking at qualified leads? Are we looking at only growing leads? Are we looking at customer retention? So there's
Absolutely.
It's working backwards or forwards simultaneously on everything.
You learn from life, and with kids, there's always the why. Like why. Whatever you answer, I'm sure everyone why. If we implement this kiddie-ish behavior to what we do, we'll go places. Just the ability to ask questions, then the right questions, then form a point of view, because we lack point of views. We also, as individuals, tend to become a commodity by saying the same thing, repeating the same thing. There's nothing wrong, but we can't expect we cannot claim that we are valuable when we do what everybody else is doing. There's a difference between
opinion and informed opinion.
100%. And deconstructing, de-KPIing what people are doing, de-job description what people are doing is very important. And there's always one criteria on a pure human level that doesn't require tech. If you feel too comfortable with what you are doing, you should really stop and wonder what is it that you're missing. And if you are somewhere not sure and you want to try and you're taking some risks and whatever it is, then definitely you are on the right path.
true. Growth doesn't happen in the comfort zone. Roy, I feel I can continue talking to you for hours, but we do need to wrap up this podcast. It's been very, very interesting. We covered so much ground in such little time, but before we close, take a second. I want you to think about what is the key message. If you got a chance to speak to all of these marketers, all of these agency leaders, ad tech players, and production houses, and everybody on the periphery of brand marketing, creative comms, what's the key message that you would like to drill down on and say, let's move the needle here?
I think I've always been driven by one saying that, small minds talk about people, average minds talk about events, and big minds talk about ideas. And again, I'm fortunate to be in this industry and this specific geographical location, because there are a lot of big minds out there that talk about ideas. But how do we eliminate silos between us? How do we work collectively? The market is big. The market is huge. And if I think about how am I going to get this small thing out of you, then I'm missing the point. So there are enough opportunities for everybody to work and live and create and grow. But we're focusing too much on the P&L. We're focusing too much on the pressure. Rightly so. Rightly so. I do it also. I'm not better than anyone. But how can we take a step back and think big about how we can collectively improve on the value that we put in forward? Because if we don't believe that we can do it, then nobody else is going to believe us. If we don't take steps to ensure that we are putting value, we are business partners, we're not agencies that are executing briefs. We are not here to deal with problems, but we're here to provide solutions that do cater to whatever is said that needs to be achieved. The more we work collectively and we share, knowledge sharing, we all talk about knowledge sharing, but if you ask me, what knowledge did you share in the last year? I'm going to look at the sky, because I might not have an answer. So again, including myself, I'm talking to myself, not just to the rest, talking to all of us. How can we sit more together, talk more together, share ideas, and work towards one objective, because we're all after the same thing at the end of the day. And the ability to understand democracy not at a political level, at a consumer of information level, and as provider of information level, because people should be free to... It goes back to listening. If you don't listen, how can you tell me? How can I tell you something if I don't know what you're looking for, or what is it that you're after? So collaboration, I'm not going to talk about getting together officially, but collaboration, maybe you guys can help with quite a few things, putting few people around the table, but not for the PR of it. I think let's not PR it at all. Let's keep it behind the closed doors.
Like this, just an open, honest conversation.
Open, honest conversation with measurable action points. Measure. If we can't do anything, then okay, nice to meet you. Let's move.
It starts with let's have a conversation.
Of course.
And then once that conversation takes place, let's see what can be action based on it. And then I think rather than the industry holding each other accountable, we all hold ourselves accountable
100%.
to the implementation of those ideas.
100%.
I think that's a fantastic way to end this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Roy, once again for joining us here.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure. That draws us to the end of this wonderful podcast with an excellent leader within the industry. To view more such podcasts, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Stay tuned for more. Until next time, goodbye.
Thank you.